GreyGray, tell.
Check it.
My name is Amaka, and I want to tell you about the day my father sold me like a bag of rice. But this isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about discovering that sometimes the greatest courage comes from the darkest places. Before I continue, subscribe so I can dive right in. I was 17 when everything changed. 17 and full of dreams about finishing secondary school, maybe going to university, becoming a nurse like I always wanted. I had my whole life planned out, you know. But my father, Peter, had different plans for me. Papa was never satisfied with what we had. While other families in our village were content with their small farms and simple lives, Papa always wanted more. More land, more money, more respect. He would pace around our compound at night, talking about all the things he could do if only. He had more farmland to expand his business. Our family wasn't poor, but Papa's greed made him feel poor. He would look at Chief Augustus's massive compound with its many buildings and fancy cars, and I could see the envy burning in his eyes like fire. Chief Augustus was the wealthiest man in our village and 3 neighboring villages. He was in his 60s, old enough to be my grandfather, but people feared him more than they respected him. He had this way of looking at young girls that made my skin crawl, like we were pieces of meat in the market. I should have seen the signs. Papa had been visiting Chief Augustus's compound more frequently, coming back with this strange excitement in his eyes. He would count money late into the night and make phone calls in hushed voices. Mama would ask him where the money was coming from, but he would just tell her not to worry about it. Then came that terrible morning. I was getting ready for school when Papa called me into the sitting room. Chief Augustus was there, sitting in our best chair like he owned the place. He was wearing his usual white agbada and gold chains, smoking his pipe and looking at me in that disgusting way. Papa's voice was shaking when he spoke, but not from fear, from excitement. He told me I wasn't going to school anymore. He told me I was going to marry Chief Augustus. He told me it was a great honor, that our family was now going to be rich, that Chief Augustus had given him the biggest parcel of land in the village as my bride price. I felt like someone had poured cold water on me. I looked at Papa, waiting for him to laugh and say it was a joke, but his eyes were serious. And worse than that, they were greedy. He wasn't looking at me like his daughter anymore. He was looking at me like I was his ticket to wealth. Chief Augustus stood up and walked over to me. His breath smelled like tobacco and something rotten. He told me I was now his property, that I should pack my things because I was moving to his compound that very day. I wanted to scream, to run, to fight, but I was too shocked. How do you fight your own father? How do you run from the man who gave you life? Mama was crying in the kitchen, but she didn't try to stop it. Later, I found out Papa had threatened to divorce her if she interfered. She was trapped just like me. That evening, I found myself in Chief Augustus's compound, which was more like a fortress than a home. High walls, security guards, and an atmosphere that felt heavy with secrets and sadness. The compound was huge, with many buildings scattered around. Chief Augustus showed me to what he called my new home, a small but well-furnished house at the back of the compound. He told me I was special, that I was going to be his youngest wife, that he was going to take very good care of me, but something felt wrong. The place was too quiet, too isolated, and there were other small houses scattered around, all with their doors locked from the outside. That first night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing sounds, crying, whispering, sometimes screaming that would suddenly stop. When I asked the older woman who brought me food about the sounds, she quickly looked away and told me to mind my business. It took me 3 days to discover the truth. I was walking around the compound during the day Chief Augustus was away on business when I heard singing coming from one of the locked houses. It was a lullaby, the kind mothers sing to babies, but the voice sounded young, too young. I followed the sound and found a small window at the back of the house. When I looked inside, my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. There were 5 girls inside, all around my age or younger. Some looked like they were barely 15. They were all in different stages of pregnancy, sitting on mats on the floor, looking lost and broken. One of them A girl who couldn't have been more than 16 was holding a baby and singing that lullaby. When she saw me at the window, our eyes met, and I saw something that chilled me to the bone: hopelessness. She came to the window and whispered her story. Her name was Chinelo, and her father had sold her to Chief Augustus 2 years ago for a small plot of land and some money. She had been pregnant 3 times already. The other girls had similar stories: fathers who sold them, families who traded them for land, money, or favors from Chief Augustus. That's when I realized the horrible truth. Chief Augustus wasn't just collecting wives. He was collecting young girls to breed children for him. We weren't wives, we were prisoners. Chinelo told me there had been other girls before them, but they had either died during childbirth or disappeared when they became too sick or too old. Chief Augustus would then go find new young girls to replace them. The most heartbreaking part was that some of these girls still defended their fathers. They would say things like, "At least my family is not hungry anymore," or "My father needed the money for my brother's school fees." They had been brainwashed to believe that their sacrifice was noble. But I knew better. I knew that what our fathers did to us was not love, it was selfishness disguised as family responsibility. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to accept this fate. Not for me, and not for those girls. I started planning. Every day, I would observe the compound, noting when the guards changed shifts, when Chief Augustus left for his meetings, when the compound was most quiet. I befriended the older woman who brought food, slowly gaining her trust until she started sharing information about the compound's routines. I discovered that Chief Augustus kept the keys to all the houses in his bedroom, and that he usually slept heavily after drinking his evening palm wine. I learned that there was a back gate that was only guarded late at night, and that during the afternoon prayers, most of the compound was empty. But I also learned something else: Chief Augustus had connections everywhere. The local police, traditional rulers, even some government officials owed him favors. Even if we escaped, where could we go? Who would believe us? Who would help us? That's when I realized that just escaping wouldn't be enough. We needed to expose Chief Augustus completely, make sure he could never do this to other girls again. I started writing. Every night, I would write down everything I witnessed, everything the girls told me, every detail about Chief Augustus's operation. I wrote about the other men who would visit the compound, the ones who would inspect the girls like they were buying cattle. I wrote about the babies that were born and immediately taken away. I wrote about the girls who died and were buried in unmarked graves behind the compound. I also started organizing the girls. It wasn't easy. Many of them were too broken, too scared, too convinced that this was their destiny. But slowly, I managed to convince them that we deserved better, that we were worth more than the land and money our fathers had received. The plan was simple but dangerous. During the next new moon, when the night would be darkest, we would break out of the houses, gather all the evidence I had written, and make our way to the state capital, where I had a teacher who could help us reach human rights organizations and journalists. But Chief Augustus was smarter than I thought. 2 days before our planned escape, he called me to his main house. He was sitting in his big chair, smoking his pipe, with my written evidence spread out on the table in front of him. He had found everything. He told me he was disappointed in me, that he had thought I was special, different from the other girls. He said I had forced his hand, that he was going to have to make an example of me. But then he made a mistake. He offered me a deal. He said if I stopped trying to organize the girls, if I accepted my fate and became the obedient wife he wanted, he would let the other girls go. He would release them back to their families and find other ways to satisfy his desires. It was a lie, of course. I could see it in his eyes. But he had given me something valuable. He had confirmed that he saw me as a threat, which meant our plan could work. That night, I made the hardest decision of my life. I sent word to the girls that the plan was moving forward immediately. But with one change. They were all going to escape, but I was going to stay behind to make sure Chief Augustus couldn't follow them or alert his connections. Chinelo begged me to come with them, but I knew it wouldn't work. Someone had to create a distraction, someone had to make sure the evidence reached the right people, and someone had to pay the price for our rebellion. The escape happened exactly as planned. During the late evening when most of the guards were eating, the girls broke out of their houses using tools I had stolen from the compound's workshop. They gathered at the back gate where I had arranged for them to meet a truck driver who had agreed to help after I told him what was happening. But as they were leaving, I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I set fire to Chief Augustus's main house. I had soaked the curtains and furniture with kerosene earlier that day, and when I lit the match, the whole place went up in flames faster than I expected. I made sure to burn everything: his records, his money, his evidence of all the deals he had made with other families. The fire created enough chaos and distraction for the girls to escape completely. By the time the guards realized what was happening and put out the fire, the girls were already hours away, heading towards safety with all the evidence I had written. But I didn't run. I stood in the compound, watching Chief Augustus's empire burn, knowing that this was my last act of defiance. Chief Augustus found me there, standing in the smoke and ashes of his burning house. His face was twisted with rage, but also with something else: fear. He knew that his secrets were now in the wind, that those girls would tell their story, that his reputation and power were about to crumble. He grabbed me by the throat and demanded to know where the girls had gone. When I refused to tell him, he became violent in a way I had never seen before. I won't tell you exactly what happened next, because some stories are too painful to share in detail. What I will tell you is that I kept my promise to those girls. I never told Chief Augustus where they went, and I made sure that my sacrifice meant something. You see, before I started the fire, I had done one more thing. I had written a final letter explaining everything, and I had given it to the truck driver to deliver to the newspapers and human rights groups along with the evidence the girls were carrying. 3 days later, the story exploded across the country. Chief Augustus exposed the monster who bought children. The newspapers had everything: the testimonies of the escaped girls, my detailed evidence, even photographs that Chinello had secretly taken with an old phone. Chief Augustus was arrested. His political connections abandoned him. The families who had sold their daughters to him were exposed and shamed. Laws were changed to protect young girls from forced marriages, but most importantly, those 5 girls were safe. They were given counseling, education, and new chances at life. Chinello became a nurse, just like I had always wanted to be. She now runs a shelter for girls who have escaped similar situations. As for me, well, let's just say that some sacrifices are permanent. But I want you to know that I don't regret my choice. Not for a single moment. Because sometimes, one person's courage can break chains that have held many people captive. Sometimes one person's sacrifice can save many lives. And sometimes dying for the right cause is more meaningful than living for the wrong reasons. My father got his land, but he lost his soul. He lost his daughter, his reputation, and the respect of everyone who knew him. The land he sold me for became worthless when the government seized all of Chief Augustus's properties. But here's what will shock you. 3 months after my sacrifice, something happened that no one expected. The other girls, the ones I helped escape, they didn't just disappear into new lives. They came back, not to our village, but close enough. They started an organization, a network of young women dedicated to exposing men like Chief Augustus and fathers like mine. They called it Amaka's Army. These girls I died to save became warriors. They started investigating other villages, other compounds, other chiefs who were buying and selling young girls. They worked with international organizations, with government agencies, with anyone who would listen. In just 2 years, Amaka's army has shut down 12 operations like Chief Augustus's compound. They have saved over 60 girls. They have sent 23 men to prison. And here's the most incredible part: they carry my story with them. Every girl they save learns about the 17-year-old who chose to burn everything down rather than accept being sold like property. But I haven't told you the most shocking part yet. Last week, Chinello visited my grave. Yes, they built me a proper grave with a beautiful headstone that reads Amaka. She chose freedom over life. She brought someone with her, someone whose presence there would blow your mind. She brought my father, Papa is now a broken man. The land he got for selling me was seized by the government. Mama left him. The whole village treats him like a curse. He has nothing left except the memory of what he did to his own daughter. Chinelo told him my story, not just the part he knew, but everything. She told him about the other girls, about Chief Augustus's operation, about how I died to save them. And Papa broke down and cried like a baby. He confessed everything to Chinelo. He told her that Chief Augustus had been grooming him for months, slowly convincing him that selling me was the best thing for our family. He told her that he knew deep down it was wrong, but his greed had poisoned his mind. But here's the twist that will make your head spin. Papa revealed something that changes everything we thought we knew about this story. Chief Augustus had a partner, someone who helped him identify which families were struggling, which fathers were greedy enough to sell their daughters, someone who would scout villages and make lists of beautiful young girls whose families could be manipulated. And this partner, this person who helped destroy so many families, it was someone we all trusted, someone who was supposed to protect young people, not sell them. Someone whose identity is so shocking that when Chinelo told me who it was, even from beyond the grave, my spirit was shaken. But that revelation, that name, is a secret so dangerous that it could destroy everything Amaka's army has built. Because this person is still alive, still in a position of power, still trusted by hundreds of families, the question is, should some secrets stay buried with the dead, or do the living deserve to know the truth, no matter how much it might hurt? What would you do if you knew a secret that could save future victims but destroy present lives? How far would you go for justice? And who decides what price is too high to pay for the truth? These are the questions that haunt every hero's journey. These are the choices that separate the brave from the comfortable. The name of Chief Augustus's partner is written in a sealed letter, locked in a safe that only Chinelo knows how to open. She's been carrying this burden for weeks now, trying to decide whether to reveal it or let sleeping demons lie. But soon, she has to make her choice, because someone else has discovered the secret, and they're threatening to expose everything. Unless Chinelo pays them to stay quiet, the hunter has become the hunted, and Amaka's army is about to face their greatest test yet. After all, some battles end with victory, but the war continues long after the heroes have fallen.